Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I could assure you that I won't be long. I'll try to get you out of here on time at 4. I'm on the other side, not on BELIZE, but the issue of YURUMEIN as an ancestral homeland and its significance to Garifuna people internationally. The Garinagu are a people resulting from a biological mixture of Kalinagu and people of African origin that took place in YURUMEIN. The Garinagu, knew that YURUMEIN is their home, so they inhabited until their exile in 1797. The British and French invaded the Garifuna territory in the 17th century, and the British attempted to colonize the island. The Caribs fought fearlessly to the bitter end to save their homeland from colonization. However, they were defeated in 1795 when Chief Chatouillet was killed. History said that the island of St. Vincent was inhabited by Caribs from before the 1500s. They had to fight off both the British and the French to save their homeland. They regarded the warriors in their fights against the British, and their struggles continued year after year, and around 1850s to 1795 they were fighting, and this was crippling the efforts of the Garinagu. According to Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves, in his book, The Case of Caribbean Reparatory Justice, he estimated that in 1796, approximately 4,776 Garinagu were placed on the island of BELIZE. This island was barren and uninhabitable. They were placed there for 7 months with the hope that they would perish. On March 11th, 1797, 2,248 Garinagu were put on ships to commence the exile journey to Roatan, Honduras. During the journey, 222 died. Roatan was where the British placed their prisoners and those who were considered as troublemakers within the British territory. Garinagu today still suffer the pain and trauma of BELIZE. After an extended period on the island of Roatan, of which many of them died, the few remaining survivors migrated to other parts of Guatemala, Nicaragua, and Belize. In 1802, a small group arrived in Belize and established communities along the southern coast. The mass movement of Garinagu from Honduras to Belize occurred later in 1832, and throughout the migration to present day, they've maintained a strong sense of social and ethnic identity and have contributed significantly to the growth and development of Belize. However, that's the bright side. The Garinagu also suffered in Belize. From their arrival until about 1960, they were not allowed to enter or to stay in Belize City beyond 6:00 p.m. unless if they had a pass. They were ridiculed within the city. They were asked to go back because they were just barked from a crab hole. And they suffered at the hands again of the British, because at that time, Belize was a British colony. And they were allowed to stay to the south of the Cebu that was somewhere between being a British colony and a Spanish colony. In today, the presence of the Garifuna religious practices and the spiritual practices involving the use of sea, the keys and the beaches, subsistence practices of fishing, hunting and cultivation of the land are still aspects of the culture and livelihood that remained intact among the elders. The return to the ancestral homeland is the desire of almost every Garifuna. This is to serve as a fact-finding mission as it relates to the Garinagu who remain in YURUMEIN and to compare their way of life to ours, the descendants of those who were exiled. The yearning to return to our homeland as a people has led to several attempts in the unification of the Garifuna people as our ancestors survived before the exile. There is also the wish among Garinagu in the diaspora to unite the Garinagu in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, along with Garinagu in the diaspora, to form a Garifuna nation linked to our history, starting from our way of life in YURUMEIN. In New York, the Garifuna Coalition, Inc. established the Garifuna American Heritage Month from March 11th to April 12th, and these are significant dates because they are coinciding with the departure of our ancestors from BELIZE and ending with the arrival in Roatan. April 12th in Honduras is a celebration of the arrival of the Garinagu to Roatan, and to this day is also being recognized throughout the Garifuna diaspora as very significant, and cultural activities are planned around this date. Currently, Garifuna groups are lobbying the government of Honduras to recognize March 14th to commemorate the murder of Chief Joseph Satoye, as he is a Garifuna hero throughout the diaspora. The first organized pilgrimage to YURUMEIN was in July 1995 by a delegation from the National Garifuna Council of Belize. Most of those who made the pilgrimage spoke about the emotions that they went through, lots of tears and chills when they imagine what the ancestors must have went through. Some were happy to finally see where we were once alive, healthy, and were happy. Our original homeland that was fought for by our brave ancestors. The Garifuna Coalition, Inc. also made a pilgrimage in 2009. It was entitled Vinci Homecoming. It was planning is underway for another pilgrimage by the Garifuna Coalition, Inc. for 2019 to commemorate the 40th anniversary of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, the independence. The pilgrimage would not be complete without a trip to BELIZE. It is regarded as a sacred ground for us, since some of our ancestors perished there, as is stated by most speakers before me. It is believed that the spirit of our ancestors is still roaming on BELIZE. We all experience that unusual feeling mixed with emotions and when we are there. YURUMEIN is a special place for us. It is where the Garifuna culture started. We mention BELIZE in our songs, in poetry, in speeches relating to our celebration of anything Garifuna. This is an indication that we are connected with the past occurrences. Besides, YURUMEIN is our root. We cannot forget where we were exiled from because there are constant reminders of our ancestors' struggle. Although European historians have the information of our struggles distorted, they called us names, treated us with no respect, we still overcome. Though it was not an easy road, most of us are still struggling. Our struggles are similar to those who remained here in YURUMEIN. Our brothers and sisters in Honduras continue to be disadvantaged there. They are being killed for their land, and Garifuna activists are always targeted by the police and the politicians and unfairly arrested and jailed because of their fight for the lands that they want to take away now for tourism. When we got there, when our ancestors got there, we were placed on the seafront so that we could keep away from those who inhabited inland. Now with the rise of tourism, we are being pushed away from the lands that was assigned to us. If it was not for the exile of our people from YURUMEIN, the Garifuna language and culture would have been completely lost. Look at those who survived and remain here in YURUMEIN. Yet we should not forget that we all came from the same place, our original birthplace, YURUMEIN. We do not have any desire to relocate to YURUMEIN. We appreciate the fact that we can travel here freely, come here when we feel like, we are back and we go back to our country of citizenship. Helping our people, retrieving our language and culture is enough satisfaction for most of us. So we usually come here with a mission to see where help is needed in that cultural retrieval. My personal experience in my first visit here in 2014 was filled with emotion, fears, questions that cannot be answered at this time. For me, it was a dream came true when I stepped out of the airplane to the ground at the home of my ancestors. Riding through the hills and the mountain areas brought me to imagine the areas our ancestors took to hide out from the British, how they survived. I had mixed emotions when I realized that the Garinagu here had lost everything about being a Garifuna. I wish if I could come here more often and help them retrieve the culture. The most touching was the highly emotional part of the pilgrimage that was the visit to Balisao. I was one of the lucky few to saw some partial skeletal remains in different areas along the ocean side on the opposite side of the island from where we landed. The remains were among the tree trunks, they were in between sticks amidst rocks, etc. We presume these to be remains of our ancestors, and due to the erosions, I wonder what happened to the other remains. Are they still lingering around, or were they a result of the emotion and washed away by the sea? Leaving the area though made me felt like I was just from a funeral. It is like I was connected to those remains. I support having a portion of Balisao designated as a World Heritage Site and memorial in honor of those who perished there. Efforts are being made for the teaching of the Garifuna language and culture to young Garinagus in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in an attempt to retrieve what was lost. It will not be easy, but it's worth trying. The hope is with the people to follow through on this effort, if it is something you all really want. Garinagu anywhere always has the desire that one day they will make it to YURUMEIN, even if it means saving for years, because it's not really cheap to make a journey to YURUMEIN. There are various Garifuna organizations established within the diaspora. And all these organizations has on their agenda pilgrimage to YURUMEIN and BELIZE. These organizations can be found in Belize, Guatemala, Honduras, Nicaragua, and now they are also found in St. Vincent. They are in the United States. There are more in the United States than we can think. Almost every state in the United States have at least one or two Garifuna organizations. It is always the desire of all these organizations to include in their pilgrimage a trip to BELIZE. We are filled with emotions when we visit, and I've repeated, but I keep saying the emotions because that's what we feel. And although the journey from some destinations is long, is a very long travel, it will take us like 2 days. It doesn't really matter. We try to make that journey possible. Some of those in the United States would give support to local organizations within the region and provide linkages with each other in order to make that wanted, deserved pilgrimage to YURUMEIN and to make it possible for their family and their family members and friends. The reenactment of the arrival of the Garinagu from YURUMEIN is the main focal point of our annual Garifuna Settlement Day celebrations on November 19th in Belize. And it is also the main point for the celebrations in Guatemala on November 26th. In Honduras, it is also very, very important for them on April 12th. And in Nicaragua, they have adopted November 19th. And in Honduras, there are always this rush to fill the boat that 2 years ago, a boat overturned where some young people actually did not make it through, right? And that was a sad time amidst all the celebration. And they were reminded, as much as it was sad, a speaker reminded them that when our ancestors made that journey from BELIZE to Rotan, some perished. The spirits of our ancestors are here in YURUMEIN. They are happy when we return. The spiritual connection continues as we reconnect with our people here. We visit BELIZE to pay tribute to our ancestors, those whom we lost. These constant trips to YURUMEIN has created awareness of the Garifuna culture. And we must know that Garinagu are an indigenous people to St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We were here before the colonizers. We were exiled because we fought for our land. I refuse to use the word of the historian to say we were deported. You deport someone back to their country who has entered your country illegally. That's right. We were exiled from our country. And please do not forget that we were once one. We lived, our ancestors lived harmoniously together. And if there was any fight, it was like how we live today. And so YURUMEIN lives on. And we, the ancestors of those who are exiled, will continue to visit the homeland of our ancestors. Sereme, thank you.
Thank you as well to you for giving an insight on what especially BELIZE means to the Garifuna diaspora. So we're opening up the floor to questions. And there goes the hand shooting up. Sir with the hat, please. If you don't mind stepping up and speaking into the microphone so we could hear you better, please. No?